Hey, what is up guys? In this video, I'm going to be teaching you 5 chess tactics that every chess player should know. So I hope you enjoy and let's get started. A pin is a very devastating thing just because the piece that is actually pinned just can't move at all, and if it's not defended by more than one thing, it's just completely screwed. Like for example, in this position where if white just plays a simple move, bishop g5, and white or black ignores it and white is able to play knight d5, white is just or black is just completely screwed because the knight is only defended by the queen, so white's knight can just easily take it. This does nothing, we just still take it. So the only other move to actually defend the knight again would be king up, but he can't even do that. So the knight is completely destroyed, and again, a pin, black can't just take the knight because then the queen will be hanging. So here black just loses the knight and is completely losing. So that's an example of how devastating the pin could be. Discovered attack is another very strong and important tactic to know to not only use against your opponent, but to not fall for when your opponent tries to do it to you. So one example of the discovered attack is this position, where it looks completely losing for white. It's a queen for a bishop and a rook. Black's ahead a pawn. What can white do? And for a discovered attack like in this position, know that after a move bishop e4, black can't just take the rook because the king is in check. So the only three legal moves after that are king b8, probably the best move, you would think. Pawn c6 and queen d5. And the thing is, only in this position after king b8, rook d8 takes is just checkmate. So pawn c6 would be the best move. But the point is, after you're losing these positions, or after you're winning in these positions, I should say, after you're winning, like if you were in black's position, never go soft or easy on your opponent and start lining up your queen with the rook and bishop. Just because, like, what does that give you? In this position, it's not even a pin. Like, sure, you think, oh, well, at least I pin it, gives me something. But especially when your king is on a light square, is it really that important to have, I quote unquote, a pin? It's not even a pin because even if bishop e4 check didn't exist, bishop c2 and bishop e2 still exist defending the rook. So what does that give you? You just risk this and your king can never go here again. So that is just one position of the discovered attack that you should always try to avoid in the end game, middle game, or opening. A fork is another very strong but more beginner-ish tactic. Like a fork you'd find even in the lowest of ratings, like 300. It's the most common and common used tactic probably there is in chess. At a higher level, usually won't be able to use one just because like grandmasters easily can avoid them, but they are very common to find, and it's very common to find a grandmaster trying to do a fork, even very high, low, and intermediate rated ratings. So a position or an example of the fork is this. So here you think, what's the problem? Black's pieces are developed except for his white bishop. The queen can soon enough do some action. Black's about to have some nice castling, and there's no attacks for white. Well, there's one attack for white. Knight takes c7. And this is a perfect example of a fork, and this is probably one of the most common forks too. Like you'd see this a lot. I mean, a lot in one of your games if you're below intermediate player. Like one of these forks, it's so common. You just get the fork the king and rook. King moves somewhere and you just take the rook. You're ahead of rook. Your knight's gonna get trapped probably, but you're still ahead in exchange and you're completely dominating. So fork, there are a lot of different ways to get a fork and miss a fork. So if your opponent ever tries a fork on you, try your best to defend it because after even in this position, like let's go pawn up here, if they try to win back the knight right away, there's another fork, and if takes takes, and there's another fork. You can never go easy. Let's just say it like that because a fork is very common and is very easy to miss. So try your best to avoid them. A skewer is another and probably the most important out of all of the tactics I'm sharing today. Because unlike the others, like the pin, the fork, you've probably maybe not heard the names of, but you've probably already experienced them if you've played a decent, like, even like 30 games. They're very common, so you probably already know how to maybe not avoid them, but at least see them. But a skewer, even at grandmaster levels, you can always miss a skewer. That's why you should never go easy in an end game like this. You think, like, both black and white think, this is a draw, what am I even trying to do? Like, this is pointless. And then white just misses such a sad move. In an endgame like queen and king, both sides have queen and a king, never, and I mean ever, put your queen and king like this. Especially if your opponent has a queen placed just like this, because then moves like queen c3 and queen b2 are available. Black's just winning a queen, and its mate in like 10. So a skewer, it's not too common, but if you get into an equal end game like this, never go easy. It's just better to take the draw because rather than try to, I don't know, hope that your opponent will miss a skewer, you might miss a skewer yourself. So in an end game like this, what I do, what a lot of other people do, just take the draw. It's much safer than missing something like this. And like I mentioned earlier, a skewer like this is missed in even Grandmaster games, just because in Grandmaster games there are a lot of draws because most Grandmasters I wouldn't say are equal, but in a classical games play both really good moves, so it just ends up to be a draw if everybody does the right moves. And in this position, it would be a draw, but because grandmasters usually end up with a draw just like this position, this is very common because they end up in this position when grandmaster doesn't want the draw and then misses this. So try to avoid these skewers and just take the draw in an endgame like this. And last but definitely not least, there's the back rank checkmate. And this really technically isn't a wholesome tactic just because it's a checkmate. It's a tactical checkmate that's very easy to miss, but technically this could be referred to as a tactic just because it's it's similar to tactic. You can easily just fall for it off a little trick, and because of that little trick, you lose. And usually in a tactic, you lose like a queen or a knight or a rook, but here you get mated. So you either count it as not a tactic at all, or more tactic than anything, like a fork. So, and a back rank checkmate, like like the name states, is a checkmate on the back rank either as black or as white. Like for example, in this position where black can easily think, what is my opponent doing? What is queen d2? Now he's just giving up a queen, and then again, as the name states, the back rank checkmate for white is rook takes e8, and the king can't take his own soldiers, so the only legal move here is queen d8 where we just take, and that's mate. And in like at all levels, this mate is possible. It's so easy to go easy, like, oh, this is a draw, or oh, it's 3 pawns versus 2. Oh, I'm just winning. Then your opponent, boom, free queen, checkmate. How easy it is to fall for this is just insane. I fell for it like so many times, and I bet like every chess player in the world has fell for this at least once. Maybe not every chess player. Okay, fine. Maybe not every chess player, but every chess player that's at least played, let's say, 3,000 chess games has definitely fallen for this kind of trap. Maybe not this exact position, but similar, where you sacrifice the queen, you miss the thing, or you just miss the thing without even sacrificing. You just move your rook away because you think you're winning a pawn, but then you just get mated. So really, when you're in an endgame like this, you think you're winning, pay really close attention to those back rank mates.